Human design is a part science, part spiritual system that tells you who you came here to be. You have your own blueprint, your own way of becoming successful, your own way your dreams are going to come true, the way you'll experience the most joy and fulfillment. The instruction manual for how to move through the world is custom to you. When you act according to that manual, when you act as the real you, everything in life comes to you with more ease and less resistance. We all know we're different, yet we're still acting like there's one way to do life. Let's talk about it. To find out your design and the designs of the people in your life, you can visit myhumandesign.com or download the My Human Design app in the App Store and on Google Play.
I have a very, very special guest with me today. If I count on one hand, the few people who've really shifted my internal landscape and the way that I've taken action in the world, Heath, you would definitely be one of them. I rave about you to anyone that I have a conversation with about. And so I'm just really excited to share you with my audience because I think so many people in my cluster are people who are really curious about wanting to create alignment in business or start their own business, or they're at a place where they feel like they're kind of plateauing and they want to up level. And you brought a different consciousness to work than I'd ever heard before.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time we hear that like money is energy, or we hear that, the 5 habits of successful people that they all have to do, but you are so nuanced and complex, and you really look at the soul level of the person rather than at the business. So can you just kind of explain like how you see a business as a reflection of a person? Because that in itself is life-changing. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And I think like some of the things that you said are true. There's a lot of truth in the whole money is energy and habits and all this kind of stuff. But what happens is I see our businesses as really like sort of a divine inspiration. It's like so many people, like there's a reason why you want to do this. And it's not always like the funnest journey, but there is like some pull there. There's like a real inspired reason for people to pick the thing that they do. And what I see is that it's just a healing process. Like we're engaging in relationship with our business and it's calling us forward, and that idea or that vision of the life or the thing that we want to deliver, the create or do is bringing us forward to be the best version of ourselves. And what happens is my own personal experience and with basically everybody I work with is when you get closer and closer to that, the vision gets louder, you get really close, like your energy goes up, you're vibrating at a higher level. And then also what happens is like your internal issues, like whatever your beliefs, your limiting beliefs, your conditioning, it also gets really loud too. And so what happens is when you go to it, it's like, oh, I'm going to this thing I really want, but like shit's getting worse. Like, why is that happening? Like, oh, maybe I should like not do this. I should not be an entrepreneur. I should not do my business. But it's actually the opposite. Like you want to like, those are signals that like, okay, that this is part of the purpose of your business is to help you deal with this shit. And so a lot of times, and I say, well, people, and it's because I've also done the same thing. So just like preface that already. It's like, okay, I'm going, I'm so excited. Then it gets so painful and so confusing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a U-turn and go back to my comfort zone. And so what happens is like when we're going into our vision, we bring more energy in. That energy lights up like our inspiration, but it's also like lights up our patterns. And so my practice is really based on like helping people identify those patterns so that they could continue to walk forward into their vision. And it happens like at the start of a business, it starts like when you're at a level and then you go to like an up level, like, okay, it's a revenue up level or a lifestyle up level or just a way of being up level, you'll hit new issues. And so it's really about like repatterning those issues so that the energy can flow more into the vision and create more success. And just like you literally like you deal with those patterns and you unlock your innate potential.
And I love the way that you think about it in the sense of what you're saying about the divine inspiration. Like if we're clear, it should just be able to completely flow. So it's what you really specialize in is getting all the stuff that's in the way of that out, because you always talk about there being some kind of like if you're under the right channel and you're flowing correctly, then you're sort of able to pick up more inspiration. So can you also say more about that? Because I love that concept as well.
So what happens is, I'll kind of talk about it in a roundabout way, which is that most of us, we're living out of our conditioning. So we're like not really living based on who we are, or like our true essence or divinity. Like people talk about it in lots of different ways. But when you're aligned with like let's just say your energetic blueprint. So like I call that the Thrive Matrix. And so we have these energetic elements that are really unique to us. And so they're composed in different ways. And so when we lean into that specific blueprint for us, like that is the energy we're made of. So if we start to act in that way and create in that way within like a framework of a creative process, whether it's a business or something else, we're creating more of that energy in our environment. And so then that energy reflects back to us who we are, and then it kind of amplifies. It's like a it just keeps going. You can feed off of that energy more than what you create. So then it like allows you momentum to get to the next level. And
Mm,
so alignment is very different for everybody. And what I think happens is that most people try to get into alignment with like the thing that you said at the beginning, like the 5 healthy habits, or the thing that person does or this person does, which probably is great for them, but may not be great for you.
hmm
So it's more of a crapshoot. Like, okay, I'm just going to try all these 100 things that could be successful, or I'm going to dial into the thing that's successful for me. And that's kind
hmm
of what my lane is to help people do that, and then find ways to navigate and repattern the issues that are in between them and their kind of desired outcome.
And can you just also tell our people about how it's amazing the different kinds of blocks that you think are so unrelated that could be going into the business? Because from all the years I've known you, it's not necessarily just the obvious things like business related blocks. So, for example, people that think money is the root of all evil or whatever, like we might be familiar if you're into sort of looking into your belief system, for example, like that's a sort of maybe more obviously related thing that would be standing in the way of you reaching a new revenue goal, right?
Yep.
Whereas you really look at the entire person because you believe that the entirety of us is reflected in the business, right? So you look at, a relationship that you have with romantic partners, or you look at living situation, or you look at how you dress. That's been one that we worked on in the past before. Like, why do you look at everything?
It wasn't how you dress, it was but why you did that.
Why? Yeah.
It's, you can dress how you want, but I think yeah, it's empowering because I mean we are complete beings. Like every life area is connected to others. Like how I approach, like how I do my free time, how I like relate to my parents or my girlfriend or my buddies, or what I'm doing in my work and why. It all is, when people say it's an inside job, like whatever's inside of us is reflected out of us. And so if we're limiting ourselves in any life area, we're basically engaging in a pattern of limitation. And it's
Mm.
naturally going to show up in the business too. And so from a business perspective, like really the cool thing about working with entrepreneurs is like they're so driven to make the thing happen that they will like literally redo their whole life to get to the thing. So that's like a real, for me, like it's so exciting to work with people that are like motivated like that. But so if somebody was new and they came to me and said like, hey, I got this business issue, we could work on the business, but then it's like we're band-aiding a business to adjust for like the issues that are going on inside of them, which we all have like limiting beliefs or unconscious patterns and some flavor of that. And so I don't focus on the business first because like we're flowing that into the business. We want to like reset ourselves into our own authenticity and then take a look at like what's happening in the business. And most of the time, the business automatically unlocks.
Mm. Without directly necessarily, changing your employees or changing a strategy or.
Yeah, because what happens is when you start to unlock yourself, you get more in touch with your own intuition, your innate intelligence like wakes up. You can see how to navigate better. You become more authentic in your marketing. You get more inspired with different kinds of offers or different strategies. Of
Mm.
course, there's, you can work in that area, but it's more about like most people are entrepreneurs for a reason. Like there is a vision. They know what they want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to tell anybody what that is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm recognizing I'm keeping myself small in this life area and it's impacting my business
Mm-hmm.
because I'm restricted and then I'm kind of dancing around, or I'm using my business to prove something related to my self-worth or something like that instead of like a authentic creation.
Yeah.
And businesses make money, but it's when it's an authentic expression of you, it's easier to make that money. And when you're working from conditioning, it's like literally you're climbing a mountain with everybody else's stuff on your back.
Mm. And I will say, and I don't know if I've ever said this to you before, but my work, even though it's gotten bigger, has become so much more easy since I've worked with you. Those sort of impactful sessions where you explain to me that it's kind of about siphoning off your energy less into places that it doesn't need to be so that it frees up energy. And like you said, then you're naturally more creative, you're naturally more inspired. You kind of know what to do and what not to do when you're not like draining it on things where it needs to not be drained. And when you're giving it to places that don't feel right, you are just going to have less energy anyway to then be able to do the things you want to do, even if they're completely, like I said, even if they're totally separate areas of life.
Yeah, it just makes things harder. And it's like you're
Mm.
fighting yourself. So if I'm focused on fixing a certain relationship for whatever kind of reason, instead of just letting it be what it is, that it obviously it takes my attention, obviously my emotions are involved, but it also like is a constant bleed out of my energy. So you want to kind of like reset how you relate to everything, because like everything is an energetic exchange
Mm.
through your business, the way you eat food, the way you move your body, the way you think about like the news, everything. Like just dealing with the news all the time can totally bring you out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if you just think about it, it's like if you have a very clear intention of like I want to like serve this many people through my work, or I want to get this kind of message out, or I want to create this kind of impact, then it's we build the energy up to focus on that particular outcome. And that's what guides the work, because maybe somebody has hundreds of issues, but what really comes up and makes this work is that we just look at like, okay, we're at point A and we want to go to B. Like, what's the problem in between A and B?
Mm. And that's why what's so good about the way you work is you ask about the goal that someone wants, right? And it's almost like your soul, your ego, healthy ego is using that as a shiny carrot so that your soul can do the work of the next thing that you need to work on. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like I can imagine really where your work comes in and where your ability to read energy so beautifully comes in is that for someone, reading the news could be the thing that energizes them, inspires them, keeps them going, whereas to someone else, it's a total time suck and actually pulling them away from their alignment.
Yeah, and the news is a great example because like I actually struggled with that for a lot of time, which is like, okay, I want to know what's going on, but then I'm like using it as a distraction to fill my space instead of being in my intuition and working on like whatever the topic is for me to work on. So
Mm,
it's really different for different people.
mm.
Um,
And it's not always black and white, right? Like sometimes you'll say, there's 20% of you doing this that's kind of off, right? Like that's when you get really, I think to me, that's when your sort of ability to see nuance really shines, where you're like, not always saying, don't do this altogether. You'll be like, there's a tiny bit in there that's in it for the wrong reasons. Like, let's talk about this one specific area or time when you engage in it for the wrong, coming from the wrong place or something.
yeah, and for a lot of my clients, it's like we're don't really see our blind spots. We're so good at the thing that we want to do, and it's like, okay, I'm doing this, and then our blind spots are more like habits or beliefs or patterns that we've just like accepted as who we are over time, and they don't realize that they're actually keeping us out of the thing that we want to create.
Mm-hmm.
And so, part of the habit may be like, okay, well, I'm interested in like a certain thing, but then I'm totally using it as a way to like not do the thing I want to do.
Mm.
So it happens a lot.
I'm curious as you're saying this, and I've never asked you about this before because we've obviously we have actually worked you and I on other goals that aren't just business related goals. I'm curious whether you ever get people who come to you so sure that they want to start a business And has it ever happened to you where you've turned around to someone and said, actually, I don't think you want to start a business. I think you want
Freedom
to,
or to be
yeah,
more empowered. Yeah.
yeah.
So my kind of special lane is people that already have businesses because it can like, okay, if you want to get to a level up or if your thing is not working the way you want it to do, we could really break that stuck point pretty easy. Like
Mm,
I say easy, but it's easy to identify to kind of break free or break through. And like, that's what I call my coaching is breakthrough coaching, which is like, okay, we break through the pattern that's keeping
mm,
you out of what you want to do. But to answer your question, like that's kind of a whole other business is helping somebody get into their inspiration because there's a lot involved. Because it could be related to like I'm leaving a thing that I don't like, but I don't know where I want to go, so I'm just going to like pick a business.
mm,
Or I mean, there's a lot of nuanced kind of things in there, but I have done that because not everybody's cut out for it or situated for it. It is
mm.
its own specific kind of journey.
And I do wonder if maybe people reach a certain point in business and then say, actually, I think my brain is telling me that I want to go to the next level, but actually, I kind of deep down I want to chill, or I maybe don't want this from from an authentic place, or more is like we always think that we should want more, but maybe sometimes we want to be in seasons where we don't.
Yes, and that is the more recent kind of space where I'm finding a lot of people show up is like, okay, hey man, I'm doing good. My business is making a lot of money, but I want to like create more space in my life so that my business works better and I have a more balanced personal life or I have a more balanced thing. So their goal is not to like increase revenue. It's to
Mm,
like increase like quality of life.
mm,
And but sometimes when people are in a business like that, it can be for the reasons you described, which is like that constant more, which is coming out of a survival type mindset of like, I must have more. But a lot of times they can be operating out of some sort of conditioning that's making the business really hard. And so that's what's taking up all of the life area. And so, like, when we address that part, then your business can be more efficient and then the life becomes more balanced. And then what the funniest thing is then they grow, but they grow in a
mm.
really nice way. It's not like grinding it out all the time. And like, I have been through times where I've set like really high goals. And now it's like I don't do that anymore. I just like, okay, I want to find a balanced way to like do the things that I want to do. And then it just kind of naturally starts to flow and grow.
Mm. I, as you're saying that, it's making me think I actually wished you were in the room earlier today because someone who is a business owner was saying, oh, you can't get anything done these days without 10 lawyers. You used to be able to just do it with one, and now there's so much red tape that goes with everything. And I was thinking to myself, I kind of want to say that you could change the story about that in your own mind, but trying to explain something to people that you know to be true without the necessary like languaging about obviously there is a reality that we have to live in, and it's not about like living in a fantasy world, but as you're saying that, it's making me think, gosh, I think you're so good at kind of remembering and reminding other people that it really is about the story that you create about the reality. Because my experience from working with you is even if 9 out of 10 people, this is the way that certain things have to go for them, depending on what you're imprinting on life is what will happen. That, oh, just that day someone wasn't in the office, or just so happened you found a specialist who could do all three, or whatever extenuating circumstances that we can't see happen.
Totally. And that's exactly how it works. It's like, and it's the coincidences happen, the alignment happens, the synchronicity shows up when you're connected to yourself and like you're in alignment with yourself. You're literally, if your kind of vision is like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, then I like to detach and just like see what shows up. Let's like let the magic happen.
Mm,
It's not that I can sit around and do nothing and my business is going to magically like do stuff, but like if I do the prep and I have a client that's transitioning from one brand to another, and the more she has leaned into like this completely different kind of business and then like reworked her approach to life, opportunities are just like showing up left and right because the new thing is like really aligned with like her authentic desire and how she wants to present in the world. And it's just
mm,
like stunning to watch. And I just see it happening over and over again, which is like you don't have to try really hard to like figure out this like unsolvable puzzle. You just have to like really be more you.
Mm,
And from an energetic perspective, like through your energetic blueprint, and direct that intention to a goal and like really just kind of like work with it and be there and let
mm,
it happen. It takes
mm.
task, but it doesn't take struggle.
Yeah. I think
Effort, not
that's the big
struggle.
difference. Yeah, I think that's the big difference is that, you and I both know because our work is centered around this, that, being your real self is like the warrior's path and, in this life. And so it's not easy, but it is the sort of genie that unlocks all the other, it's like wishing for 1,000 more wishes because it is the one that makes everything else in your life flow so much easier. So it feels much more effortless to address that as like the baseline task and then to see how life shows up to support you in ways that you can't even conceive of or calculate yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, my own experience this year and kind of reworking some of my business stuff was I set some new personal goals and set like some new business goals, and I started leaning into that. And my personal life started happening in a way that I'd never really expected. I would like meet people in random places that were super aligned with like these visions for life that I've always had, and just like really, really amazing. It's not just about like revenue, it's about like really building like a really balanced, thriving experience of life. And like when you're creating, like we're creators, when we're running in creator mode in a way that's authentic for us, it all works.
Mm, yeah. I also want to ask you to share, if you don't mind, about how, and you don't have to list them all, but we spoke about this last time about how there's certain, what do you call them, like predominant energies or primary
Yeah,
energies?
energetic elements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you just, because I think that is, if people even just knew their element, like I think that in itself is one of the things that I just keep in mind at the top of my mind as like my main sort of guiding nugget in terms of the work we've done together, because of how much that realignment does so much for so many different areas of your work or your life or whatever. I just, can you explain this theory about energetic elements and why it's so important to be in the right lane?
Yeah. And so I was at a dinner the other day, and someone like explained it back to me in their own words, and it was like better than I had ever kind of could have imagined. Like, sweet, that's awesome. Um, and so there's 8 energetic elements, and we all have them all, but we have a predominant one. And so, you know, from science perspective, everything is energy. And so so let's just say like maybe you're nurturing your love and relationship is like kind of the theme for you. For me, it's like freedom and independence. And so for someone else, it may be around like authenticity and communication. So those are some examples. Or physical creation, like some people are really designed to do physical creation. And so if they're trying to build an online business and they're really designed to do physical creation, like I've got a guy now that's like doing content creation, but he's got this as his like core energetic element. And so what he does is he's like, okay, I'm going to continue to do content creation, but I'm going to like rehab real estate because it's such a physical thing for me. It like amplifies his energy that just then flows into the other stuff that he's doing. And so from a scientific perspective, it's like when we're energy. And so when we interact in the world with energy that's like us, we kind of build up resonance of that energy. So if I'm making creations that are based on freedom and independence, then I'm engaging with those creations and I'm using those creations to grow more things. Like I'm just creating more of that energy. So then I'm surrounded by more of that energy. My environment reflects back to me in freedom and independence, which just gives me more energy and momentum to keep creating. It makes things
Mm,
flow much easier. Whereas if I was like if you're freedom, if you're more relationship and nurturing and love oriented, if I was going to put you where I am, living like in a remote place in the forest or whatever, you might not have anything to reflect back to you like this core energetic element of yours of like nurturing relationships. So
mhm,
what would happen technically is like you would start to lose like that momentum because you're not having anybody to relate to and you're not
mhm.
having anybody to like reflect back to you who you are.
Mhm.
You're not having the experience of you, you're like having the experience of someone else, literally with a different design.
Mm. And if you are from conditioning, let's say if I had a conditioning to do physical creation, which I have done in the past, it
Totally.
doesn't get you many places because you're in the wrong energetic lane.
Yeah. And
And life doesn't want you to be there.
it's just like you're doing the wrong job.
Mm.
It's not that it's like bad. I know you had the food business and some other things, but it's like it's a perfect business. It was a great niche. It was a great like food thing. It was a great like style. It was a great timing. But I remember you saying like, oh, it just everybody else it was working. It wasn't working for me because it wasn't like your thing.
Hmm.
Just imagine like you're like going to the wrong job every day in the morning, like pretending to
Hmm.
be someone that's not Jenna. Like
Hmm.
how's that going to
And
work out? It's like that
and then
simple.
being like, why aren't they promoting
Yeah, where's my
me?
fucking
Basically.
paycheck?
But but I think why this is so life-changing is because it's also, even if you're in the right job, when you identify that for someone, it's like about the energy that you then also bring to the work that you do, right? Because if, for example, I was focusing on freedom and independence in the work that I do, it would look and feel very different than doing it with whatever else there is, authentic expression and
Yeah.
communication or something like that.
Yep.
And so sometimes you would say, well, you're over-indexing on trying to be the wrong thing and just get back into your lane, because then that's when people really feel that you are being you in the world, and that's what we respond to best.
Yeah, and it's just I like to just think of it as authenticity. It's like when we're doing our authenticity, so we have our like soul level authenticity up here, and when we're thinking like that at the level of thought, fourth dimension, and the third dimension, when we act like that too,
Mm,
you could just our resources come in. Like it's like we're just like really aligned, and we're able to navigate. So we're sending a clear signal to the universe or to in our creation process of like, okay, this is what we want, like a business built on nurturing relationships
hmm
or whatever the flavor may be.
mm. And then yeah, that other part that you mentioned is cool too, where it's like setting up your life around you to actually bring that essence out of you and to reflect that back to you, so that it's sort of like, it just keeps on feeding that energy in a positive upward way, so that I wouldn't go live on a mountain, because that would actually not make me find me in the world around me.
Yeah, it would be hard for you to like have the resources to navigate with clarity.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
doesn't mean that like people with independence and freedom can't also live in a city or be in a relationship. It just you have to do it from a place of freedom and power
Mm,
instead
yeah.
of like, nurturing and fulfillment. It's a different,
Mm.
but they can work together.
And it can look the same on paper, it can look the same on the surface, but what you do is you look under the hood and you say, what belief are you coming at this decision with, and what's driving this, and is it the right thing that's driving you, and is there a sort of, is there a codependent relationship that's affecting this decision, or is there guilt, or is there blame, or is there, hiding, fear of being seen, you run the whole gamut.
Yeah, and it's always comes in layers. It's like it's never like, okay, we could just do like one thing. And so it's like it's not like, okay, we're solving it, we're done and you're good to go. It's like, okay, we identify it and then like there's homework to kind of understand it in your consciousness. And then it's like we do some energetic clearing work, which is really powerful. But then it's the person's job to like go into their life and repattern that with new choices and new actions based on this consciousness of like who they are and what they've been doing that's out of alignment. And most times people are just like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then they want to change it. So there's inspired kind of action that comes after that of like, okay, I really want to make a difference now. Now that I see this, I can't unsee it. And I really want to do something about it.
I think that's really one of my favorite things about you. And I was telling my friend who I introduced you to about this the other day, is
Yeah.
that one of my favorite things about you and what really distinguishes you to a lot of other healers, and I think this is beautiful when it comes from a good place, is they want to show you your light and they want to tell you how amazing you are, how special you are, how whatever. But there is also such a kindness, if you really care about someone's growth, to show them and reveal things about ourselves that we don't necessarily like. and also to give the responsibility back to the person to take action to do something about it. So many times my homework has involved like doing something physical, taking an action step. And as much as that's maybe not as kind of, you know, because there is a woo element to it too, where we say you have a prayer that you have clients say afterwards and everything. But I love the fact that you marry the two, because that is actually when you get given this opportunity to feel like you are capable to change your own life again. Like, I'm not relying on you to cast a spell for me every 2 months without me really changing anything about my life. And as much as obviously that lazy part of me doesn't want to do any of it, that is the
Yeah.
rewarding part ultimately.
That the action is actually what creates the change, because we could do, clearing stuff every week, every month. And if you don't change your kind of way of being or your behavior or your habits, you just recreate the old pattern over and over again. And so nothing really changes. You may get like a hit for like a week or 6 weeks or something, but it'll go back to the same
Mm,
100%. And
mm,
a lot of times, like, there's so much information available in the world today. Most people can get, a lot of people, myself included, you can get so turned on by the information and the stuff and the books and all the things that's out there. And it's great. It's like, I've listened to things and met people and read books that just totally turned my life around. But
mm,
that wasn't enough. I actually had to do something more. And a
mhm,
lot of people are stuck in the loop of like, it's like you expand your consciousness a lot, but you don't change your life. And that is like a painful way to live. It's
mhm,
really, people struggle a lot with that.
mm. I think you told someone close to me once that they were living too much in 5D and they needed to come back and get some 3D caught up on where they were headed. And that really changed her life. That's the kind of, we need that person that's going to kind of lovingly call us out and say, hey, this is where you're not doing right by you, and you deserve to do a better job of really, you know, helping your soul out.
Yeah. And that also could become like an addiction. I've done it. I mean, it's like most of the stuff I help people sort out, I've kind of had my own challenge with. So being really focused in like multidimensionality and like not living my physical life was a
Mm,
kind of a addictive habit for me for a while, because I just didn't
mm,
like my circumstances. But
mm,
when you do that, the life also doesn't work. So like when your business isn't working, even if you're super good at it, that's like a telltale thing. It's like, so for my clients, it's like, okay, I'm stuck. My business isn't working, or it's not doing what I want it to do. I know that I want to do it. I know that I'm completely capable of doing it.
mm,
So what is it? And a lot of times it can be like you're really spending way more time up there trying to figure it out, and not enough time in aligned doing.
mm,
Or you keep like hitting a loud issue or conditioning or unconscious kind of pattern, and then it gets so loud and painful and like shit just goes off the rails. So people just like run for like safety, go back to wherever they came from and stop moving forward, or try again instead of sorting it out.
mm. And as you're saying that, it's kind of making me think that there's parallels between that, the sort of spiritual or mental escapism, and the people who have worked so hard and achieved a lot of success in business and actually then want to have like their time and their enjoyment of life back. It's almost like what you really are in the business of is full self-integration, because if you're using any of those things to escape the true quality of like being alive today as your favorite self to be, that's I
Yeah.
think what you always kind of lovingly shepherd people back into and towards.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't say that up front though, because everybody, you just like, I want to fix my business, and they fix it and they're like, holy shit, like I realized I wanted a different way.
Yeah.
But it's all
I
part
mean,
of the
we've had
thing.
enough sessions for me to say that about you rather than you say it about yourself, but that is ultimately the thing.
Yeah. And I've been, I don't want to say, the words that want to come out of my mouth is like lucky and grateful, but I fucking worked hard for this. Like it's hard to, like, it's a challenging path. And it's, because I was very focused on my business, and then I was very focused on relationship, and then like when I finally like started just focusing like on the internal like issues, then the business and the relationship and all the other things started to work. But
Mm,
again, it's like your earlier question of like, what is it that's reflected in the business? It's like whatever's inside of you. And it's also reflects into your relationships, whether
mm,
they're romantic or friendships or something else. It's like we have these energetic elements that have a really natural way of kind of guiding our life. Like it is who we are. And so when we're living from those elements in a way that's aligned for us, our creations reflect that back to us, like our divinity. But when we're not, when we're living kind of from those elements through like a lens of like conditioning or beliefs or some other kind of weirdness,
mm,
that's what gets reflected back in the relationship or the business,
mm,
because it becomes true. Like
mm,
that's actually true for you because that's what you're shining into the world.
mm. Which comes back to the, believing you need 10 lawyers to do anything. It's like that's a reflection of something that's being put out. And it's crazy because I've had this experience a few times where, the outside has looked exactly how I would have always thought I wanted it to look, and then I'd be happy, or this is what everyone wants. This is what should be the thing. But
Yeah.
if ultimately what's missing in all of that is you feeling like your essence is coming to you and then you're able to move it through you, your kind of specific um you know your line to the divine, your telephone line that's between you and the divinity up there. If there isn't that energy that's like funneling through you, everything else kind of does feel empty. And I do think it's amazing to go after those things and to want those things, and they're part of our earthly experience. But I think once you touch what life is able to feel like with that, which I think we all have had points in our life where we've touched that, that's ultimately, I think, what we all are looking for in the goals that we have and in the relationships that we want and in the dreams. And it's like we want to feel that divinity like moving through us, and we want to feel so close to it.
Yeah. It's like being in life instead of like struggling at life.
Mm,
And it's when it takes like a really defined inspiration point to bring you there, because it's general like, okay, there's good things, and like you said, like it works for everybody else, or I'm checking the boxes of all the things that are supposed to like make you happy, and I've done a decade or two of that, if not more. um but then realize like, okay, it's actually not going to get me what I want. And so I
mm,
just kind of gave up for a while. I'm like, okay, what is authentic for me, and what do I want? How do I want to live?
yeah.
Um, and that leads you to that path that you're describing, which is like, oh, it like works. And so in the warrior example, it's like when you're living like that, when you find that space and you kind of work on all the conditioning and the patterns, then you're living a more authentic life. Your intuition turns on more. Your The synchronicities start to show up. Like I was in a hundreds of thousands of acre like national forest, and I like met my new best friend like on the side of a mountain at sunset, in the middle of nowhere. We may be the only two humans around, and then, just a couple days ago, like picked up something at the store that I didn't really know why we might need it, but just kind of ended up needing it like today. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad that that happened.
Mm,
Those are small things, but it also happens in business too. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have a different kind of conversation. Like I went to an event and it was totally unrelated to my business, and then get invited to go do something, or somebody was there that like it was just like one more conversation, one more thing, but I wasn't trying. I was just being myself and living in my lane and doing something that was really authentic for me, and the synchronicities start to come. And
mm.
as long as you're clear, like, okay, I want to go in this direction, the things that are going to support you to get there show up, as long as you're clear in the path so that they can be there.
So why do synchronicities show up when you're aligned? Like,
Because you're
why is that there?
you're a vibrational match for it.
Mm,
Literally, like we're a match for everything. So we're a match for the people that we hire to support us on some level. So maybe people that hire me are working with something that I've already worked with before. So there's like a resonance there. We kind of create opportunities. Like the guy I mentioned to you that I ran into on the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. Like I had this vision of doing like trips with my clients, and he's like on the other end of that vision in his own way. Like, so we may do trips in the next couple of years. And, relationships are the same way. Like I think it's very simple when we look at life and the universe from energetics, because we're a match for everything we create, everything that happens around us. Like if we're not, like it can't be around us. There has to be something that matches.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's an old issue or like a negative belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like I think about it like the sorting hat in Harry Potter. Like there's billions and billions of people, places, and things on this planet. So how does it sort it? It must be according to some kind of program, right?
Yeah.
So why are you seeing the blue one rather than the pink one? Because you must be looking for blue, or you must be blue as well, or some kind of commonality or opposition or polarity with that blueness rather than the pinkness.
And I think it is literally that simple, and like the most powerful thing
Mm.
someone can do is just like tune into joy and gratitude and like some sort of vibration like that internally with an intention of I want to do this in my business, but I'm just going to be joyful every day. Then like something that matches that joyfulness in the business intention will start to like build a path for you.
Mm.
I mean, it's
Well, that's interesting because I think gratitude is such a buzzword, but I kind of feel like you have a different explanation for why the joy is important.
it sets your vibrational state. Like
Mm.
if I show up at a meeting and I'm like mad about something else, or I got some other issue that's like my intuition's not going to turn on and I'm not going to deliver really for my client, or I may not have the great conversation if I'm out in the world somewhere. And so I don't really know who made this, but there is some sort of scale about the different vibrations and the energies and what they are. And I know that shame and guilt and blame are at the low end of that. Those are three things that I've struggled with a lot. And when I was in those energies a lot in my life for a variety of reasons, I wasn't able to create, even
Mm.
though I'm good at what I do. I know what I'm doing. I've got all this, it's like I'm a carpenter, but I can't hit the nail with a hammer. And so what happens is when you raise that vibration, like it works better. It's smoother.
Mm.
Like it's a higher, like creative energy than the other ones. And it's literally like, I believe there's like two energetic operating systems. There is survival mode and there's creator mode.
Mhm.
And so when you're in these higher vibrational qualities, like inside of yourself, like you're more in creator mode.
Mhm.
When how you get there is different for each person. It's like how much of their like energetic element and their energetic blueprint that they're embodying.
Mhm. And it's definitely true about what you were saying earlier that there's always layers because you're never done, and you revisit themes in deeper and deeper ways. But what's important is that the one that's calling you to be addressed now, when people work with you, what's amazing is that you can shift so much just from doing that one thing that was the most pertinent thing to do now is you see action straight away. Like it's almost immediate, the changes that sometimes freakishly, one once with you was like literally in the space of 2 hours that I was like spooked by. Um, so I think sometimes if you're someone who identifies as a spiritual seeker, you sometimes it's very easy for I speak for myself as well, especially when I was in my 20s, I got so overwhelmed by like trying to get there versus actually each stage has that there's a joy and there's a levity in there. And I think that's really the lesson is like not making joy something that we're going to let ourselves have later, but the joy because we can be in creation mode today, and that's a pleasure.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to think about it, because it's like once you're in this like path, like you're not, this is just the path.
Yeah.
You actually don't have to wait for the good stuff, but you can like if you like agree to it and you stop resisting the thing, it's like, okay, I'm going to actually look and work on these things. Then there's joy. It's really joyful. Like
Yeah.
I relish when I find some new thing
Yeah.
because then I can like sort it out. I'm just like, oh wow, I can't believe I haven't seen this yet. Now I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's
And there's
ongoing.
no shame. There's no shame then sometimes when like, I get excited to admit stuff about myself that's kind of icky because now I'm like, ooh, there was this other thing. And I actually, I said, I was texting you yesterday, like, oh, there's a part of me that actually doesn't want to let go of this thing and is still attached to it. Like, I think me 10 years ago, when I think you sort of almost try to protect your ego, um, you don't get excited about that kind of stuff. But actually, from this new place of like, oh my gosh, we can say anything about ourselves and not think that that makes us bad people or unworthy people or unlovable people, it becomes a really fun game.
Yeah, it is. And it's like sometimes like there's immediate results. Like I do single sessions now and it's like we just focus on the top one or two patterns that are creating the most problems and just like do the thing. And then
Mhm.
there's longer programs where it's like, okay, we're going to go super deep into this and like hit a lot of different layers of it and just go through like a more deep transformational process. So
Mm.
it just kind of depends on what people are ready for or what they want. And, I think most people kind of have an intuitive hit on like what they need. Like, okay, I've been struggling with this for years. I think we should like work on this for a while, or everything's really good. I just need to like sort this one thing out, kind of thing.
Mhm. But I will say that it's really not about the goal because it's actually the goal was just the shiny carrot that got you to the freedom and levity and love of being your real self-actualized self a bit more than you were yesterday, which is a priceless feeling. And you are a little bit like Hotel California, Heath, because you think you're gonna come for one session.
I'm a little bit like, what?
A bit like Hotel California. You come
Oh,
once and then you never leave. Like, I always think I need one session, and then I'm like, somehow 6 years later, and we're still talking.
yeah.
It's really, really so heart expanding, mind expanding, freeing, levity, like the amount of joy you get just from feeling free of all your stuff and then how it makes you so much more in service to your business rather than using your business or your relationships to kind of feed your own ego. Then you just get to do them because you love them and because you want to pour into them and because it's fun. And then you go, oh, hold on, I think that's the whole reason why we want to do these things in the first place. So yeah.
Yeah. We're here to create. And it's like it is it the goal is important because we need a direction to take us and
Mm,
it's like an inspired goal, but most of the times that's not the final destination. It's just like the first step. And it's
yeah.
like you said, it's like what happens is like we're separated from ourselves. Like people use the word separation a lot, and we'll use a business to fill the gap, but it
Mm,
can't fill the gap. A relationship can't fill the gap. Nothing can fill the gap except for like you.
mhm.
And so when we go through this like transformation process to create an authentic business that's really serves us and is really aligned for us, that is us being more of us, and we fill the gap from us, not using the business as like a band-aid.
Mm. And I love that you said using the business as an expression of us because there's also sometimes this pressure to make a business ultimately about serving everybody else. And of course, it's amazing to be in service and it's amazing to, want to create something that really helps other people. But also, and I love this about you that you emphasize that, it's also about us expressing ourselves in the world, like us, like being the fullest version of ourselves. And our business is a way that can help us do that because that's what we're here to do is be expressions of the divine to the most that we can be.
Yeah.
So it's both for us and for others, and you can't over-index on it being one or the other.
Yeah, and when they work together both in a nice
Mm,
way, it's really great. So, I
that's
mean, if
amazing.
I didn't love what I do, then probably wouldn't work. And if I didn't like make it available to people where they could have an energetic exchange with me or the business or the work, then it
Mm,
also wouldn't work. So
mm.
and that can evolve over time, like how that happens.
I'm curious if you ever get people who are in businesses who feel guilty because it isn't like a Mother Teresa kind of cause, and they just love. Do you ever get people who just love making
People can get,
shoes?
people can get fixated on like, okay, I'm not having enough impact, but I think what the way I see it is like when you're being yourself, you're having your impact. So if I, for example, wasn't doing this, I wasn't like serving people or helping people with like transformation. If I was just doing something like that resonated with freedom and power, what I'm functionally doing though, as I'm being freedom and power. And so I'm becoming like a portal for that energy in the planet. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can like, that will empower everybody that's around me, regardless of what I'm functionally doing for my job.
Mm-hmm.
Energetically, like from your profile, it's like love and relationships. So like when you just show up being yourself, you're transforming, energy in with that vibration of love. If you had a different kind of job, it would
Mm-hmm.
still be the same.
Yeah.
And it heals people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why it's not really about, it's the doing what you love is the important part, and then bringing your energy to that thing that you love.
Yeah.
That's such a magic formula. Is there anything that you want to leave? Obviously, I'll put all of your information so people can find you in the show notes, but
Yeah.
is there anything that you really want to leave people with that you think is such an important message or reminder, something you really stand for that you wish everybody could hear today?
I think that most of us, in my own experience, and is that for most of our lives, we're operating outside of who we are. And it makes things a struggle. Like we want relationships based on patterns, we want like our business based on some other issue, and we're trying to fill some gap within ourselves. And when we can really get aligned with who we are and our authenticity, the revenue happens, the joy happens, the abundance happens, the thriving life happens. It's it can happen, and the simplicity is it's like, okay, you align with yourself, you deal with your patterns, you work with it, you commit to transformation, and life can flow. Like it's really attainable. And I have been through periods where I thought like it is not going to happen, it is not attainable, I'm not going to get to where I want to go, and I actually got somewhere better. And it's really a gift to be able to share that with people.
That's amazing. And that really is ultimately the thing that it's all about, being ourselves. Um, I'm so grateful to you. I'm grateful selfishly, for the amount that you've helped me, and just knowing you and knowing your ethos and the way that you see the world. And I'm just also so pleased that, we get to share this with our cluster today.
Thank you.
And please, if anyone, because I know they're all going to be, reaching out, I want to hear all the fun stories, because one of my favorite things to do is to gather evidence of people who have just magical results from this kind of stuff. So I'll put all of Heath's information down below. But I'm so grateful to you. You are just some kind of magic on this, walking on this earth, and I'm so happy we got to have this conversation.
Thanks, Jenna. You're amazing. I appreciate it.